I'm a nurse who had an affair with an anesthesiologist at work. I kept pretending I wasn't guilty until his wife messaged me on Facebook with the words, "I know everything." The message came in just after 3 in the morning, in the concrete stairwell between the OR and the staff parking garage. I'd propped the heavy fire door open with my hip, badge still clipped crooked to my scrub top, a paper cup of lukewarm coffee in one hand, and my phone in the other. My shoes were damp with something from PACU. Probably saline, possibly not, leaving faint prints on the landing. The stairwell light flickered in that slow, predictable way, like it had a schedule of its own. It hummed overhead, a soft electric buzz you only notice when the rest of the hospital goes quiet. Phones aren't technically allowed during cases, but everyone carries theirs anyway. The surgeons pretend not to see. Anesthesiologists scroll during long closures. Nurses tuck phones into pockets behind medication scanners. It's one of those rules that exists mostly in policy binders. I'd stepped out to breathe for a minute, the kind of break where you're not tired yet, but you already know exactly when the exhaustion will hit. The air tasted dusty, warmer than the OR but colder than the hall by PACU. I shifted the coffee to my other hand and scrolled out of habit. Emails, a group text from coworkers, a missed call from pharmacy. Then the Facebook notification slid across the top of my screen. Message request. A woman's name I didn't recognize at first. Profile photo. A stay-at-home mom type, 2 young kids, stroller, a beach in the background, bright sun. I tapped instinctively, thumb already moving. Her message opened in one centered block of text. "I know who you are. I know everything." The cup went soft under my fingers, heat bleeding through the cardboard. A code blue announcement crackled faintly above me, muffled by concrete. I held the phone a little tighter, like I needed to stabilize the screen to understand the words. I read the sentence again, slower this time. Typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared. My pulse thudded in my neck, steady but too noticeable. Down in the garage, a car chirped as someone unlocked it. The sound echoed upward, thin and hollow. Her profile picture, the smile too deliberate, the beige cardigan, the kind of woman who bakes holiday cookies for school fundraisers, held my attention more than the words themselves. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stood there in the stairwell, coffee cooling, the door to the OR hallway inching closed behind me. Her message sat on the screen like a verdict, and the last thing I remember before the moment froze was the tiny reflection of the stairwell light on my phone, trembling slightly with my grip. That was the first time I let myself consider the possibility that the situation was no longer controllable. An image that still sticks with me. A small brown coffee droplet rolling slowly down the metal railing, tracing a path I didn't know I'd left. I should have known it wouldn't stay hidden. Nothing stays hidden in hospitals, even when everyone pretends not to see. Affairs happen in on-call rooms behind supply cabinets, in charting rooms that no one actually uses for charting. People talk, people watch, people guess. And most of the time, no one cares. That's what makes the environment so easy to slip into, like a current that tugged you without force, just quiet invitation. But this wasn't about the culture. Not at first. It was about him. Dr. Marcus Halden was an anesthesiologist with the kind of confidence that makes you forget to look for caution signs. Sharp, steady voice, the practiced calm of someone who knows life and death are separated by a dosage, a decision, a second. He moved through the OR like someone who assumed people would get out of his way, and they did, including me. The first time we talked outside of a case, I was restocking the med cart in OR 6. He asked about my weekend plans, smiling like the information served some private purpose. I remember the way he leaned one shoulder against the doorframe, not blocking my exit, just making it feel like the room had gotten smaller. I told myself it was harmless. I also told myself I wasn't flattered. Both weren't fully true. Healthcare attracts a certain type of narcissism. You have to believe you matter, that you're needed, that you can fix things other people can't. Some of us, myself included, learn to fill emotional gaps with competence. You start thinking attention is a reward for surviving long shifts, trauma patients, yelling surgeons, collapsing families. You start believing you deserve connection because you spend all your time giving pieces of yourself to strangers. He knew exactly how to use that. The flirting was small at first, questions about my schedule, comments on my work, lingering in hallways, then messages, then excuses to go over medication discrepancies in empty charting cubicles. The first time he kissed me was after a 16-hour shift. The hospital parking lot half empty, both of us too tired to think through the implications. He told me he was married early on. He told me they were drifting. He told me she wouldn't understand hospital life. He also told me things like, "You're different. You get what I carry. You know what it's like to be needed by everyone." Those statements work too well on people who spend their days being indispensable. We weren't the only ones. Not even close. I could name at least 3 residents who'd hooked up with attendings, 2 nurses who'd gone home with a surgeon after trauma call, One PA who'd been quietly reassigned after rumors about a cardiologist. No one says anything because everyone is too exhausted, too entangled, or too guilty themselves. So the affair didn't feel unusual. It felt like joining a pattern. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a voicemail. Unknown number. No voice. Just quiet breathing before the line disconnected. I deleted it. The second sign was a friend request from a blank Facebook account using a first name only. I ignored it. The third sign was the one I tried hardest to pretend away. A PACU nurse handed me a slip of paper someone had left at the desk. No message, just my initials written in blue pen. Nothing else. By the third note, I stopped pretending it was a coincidence. But by then, I was already in too deep to pull back gracefully. He became more cautious. I became more reckless. We met in parked cars, in unused consult rooms, in one of the resident sleep rooms during a storm when half the OR got shut down. And every time we crossed a line, there was this quiet voice in the back of my mind insisting that I could manage the consequences if they ever came. The truth? I thought I wouldn't get caught. Narcissism sounds ugly, but in hospitals, it's disguised as confidence. The unraveling started when he left his phone unattended in the anesthesia lounge. Texts from me on the lock screen. A picture. Nothing explicit, but enough. I didn't know his wife had begun checking his devices. I didn't know she'd set up notifications for his logins. I didn't know she'd taken screenshots, tracked timestamps, and started following every digital breadcrumb. I didn't know until the message in the stairwell. I know who you are, I know everything. When I finally responded, it was only 2 words. What exactly? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sent a photo. A screenshot of a message from me to him. Same room as last time? The timestamp was barely 2 weeks old. She followed it with another screenshot. Then another. Then a picture of my car parked in the employee lot beside his. The angle taken from what looked like the top level of the garage. My chest tightened so sharply I thought I was getting lightheaded. The stairwell felt smaller, the railing colder. My thumb hovered over the reply button without touching it. Another message from her. You're not the first. You're not even the second. That part landed heavier than anything else. Not because it made me feel replaced, but because it made everything suddenly, brutally believable. A stay-at-home wife with time, instinct, and access can put together an investigation with frightening precision. I walked back into the OR hallway, hands cold. The floor smelled like disinfectant and burnt cautery. The surgical board glowed bright against the wall. Someone pushed a cart past me, metal rattling. I didn't say anything to him. Not yet. Instead, I went to the staff locker room and sat on a bench near the sink. The room hummed with the ventilation system. The tile floor was cold through my scrub pants. I opened the Facebook thread again, scrolling through the screenshots she'd sent. Each one felt like a piece of evidence taped to a case file. Dates, times, room numbers, my initials, his. More messages came. I've talked to others. Your hospital is worse than I thought. Do you think you're the only one he's lied to? Then the one that stopped everything. I have messages from him about you. My palms went damp. Before I could type anything, another notification appeared. This time from him. A single line. We need to talk. For the first time since the affair began, the tone wasn't flirtatious or rehearsed. It was clipped. Sterile. The kind of voice he used during a difficult airway. I stared at that sentence for a long time. The room sounded too quiet, except for my own breathing and the hum of the light. He met me in the physician dictation room. Door closed, blinds half drawn. He didn't touch me, didn't step closer, just stood there with his arms crossed, jaw tight. He told me she'd confronted him. He told me she had been tracking his location for weeks. He told me she had pictures of us leaving the hospital together. He told me she'd contacted 2 other women, one a CRNA, one a surgical tech, both of whom had denied everything. I didn't deny it. I didn't apologize either. I just listened. When he finished, he rubbed his eyes with both hands, slow, exhausted. I need you to block her, he said. Please. There was something off in the way he said it. More fear than guilt. More self-preservation than remorse. It struck me then how transactional the whole thing had always been for him. He wasn't heartbroken. He was cornered. He asked me to lie if she reached out again. I didn't promise I would. That evening, during shift change, she messaged me again. You don't have to lie for him. It wasn't just you. You're not the one I'm angry at. He thinks he's untouchable. Then one final message. I know what room you used. I didn't reply. I locked my phone and pressed it face down against my thigh. But her words followed me through every hallway, every call light, every patient room. By the 3rd day, I couldn't differentiate between paranoia and possibility. I kept noticing small things I'd ignored before. The way charge nurses looked at anesthesia staff, the whispered conversations in break rooms, the sudden quiet when I walked in. Hospitals breed rumors like mold. They start small, grow fast, slip through air vents. I knew I needed to control the damage before it spread. So I did the one thing I never expected myself to do. I documented everything. I took screenshots of her messages, printed his texts, saved call logs. I wrote down dates, times, room numbers, all neatly listed in a plain manila folder, not to expose him, not to protect myself, but because I needed to understand the reality of what had unfolded. All the pieces I'd ignored now lined up in chronological order, like a chain reaction. The last sign, the one that finally made the situation undeniable, came a week later. A letter, folded, handwritten, left under the wiper of my car in the hospital garage. Her handwriting. My name on the outside. A single line inside. I thought you should read what he wrote about you. Tucked behind the note was a printed email thread. His words. His descriptions of me to her. Cold, blaming, self-serving. He had painted himself as a man manipulated by a careless nurse. He'd written that I pursued him, that I misinterpreted things, that he felt unsafe ending it. He'd rewritten the entire story, erased his choices, preserved his image. In the OR, reputation is worth more than truth. He knew that. I stood by my car longer than I expected, the sound of traffic filtering in from the exit ramp, the smell of exhaust drifting through the dim garage. The letter trembled slightly in my hand, and for the first time everything went perfectly still inside me. Not anger, not humiliation, just clarity. This wasn't a love story. It wasn't even a betrayal story. It was a workplace pattern, one I'd stepped into willingly, believing I was smarter than the consequences. We all need connection. We all need someone to see us behind the badge, the scrubs, the exhaustion. And in healthcare, emotional depletion masquerades as intimacy more often than anyone wants to admit. But this was something I could no longer justify. I folded the papers, slid them into the folder with the rest, and took one steady breath before getting into my car. The door clicked shut with a quiet finality. The affair ended that night. Not with a confrontation. Not with a scene. Just a decision. I blocked him. I blocked her. I reported the situation to HR, not the affair, just the harassment and the messages, because that was the safest procedural route. I kept the language factual, detached. The HR rep wrote everything down, nodding slowly. She didn't ask questions about the affair. She didn't have to. She'd probably seen 3 similar cases that year. Her name was Diane Kessler. She wore reading glasses on a beaded chain and kept a box of tissues on her desk that looked unused. The office smelled like printer toner and stale coffee. She typed my statement into a form on her computer, pausing occasionally to ask for specific dates or to clarify a detail. I gave her copies of the screenshots. She placed them in a folder labeled with my employee ID number and the date. "We'll open an internal review," she said, voice neutral. "It may take 2 to 3 weeks. You'll be contacted if we need additional information." I nodded. "Do you feel unsafe at work?" she asked. I thought about that for a moment. "No, not physically." She made a note. "If that changes, let us know immediately." I left her office with a photocopy of the incident report and a business card with an employee assistance program phone number printed on the back. The hallway outside HR was empty, fluorescent lights humming overhead. I walked slowly back to the locker room, holding the papers against my chest. By the time the internal review started, he had already transferred to a different rotation schedule. He avoided me. I avoided him. Our conversations became strictly professional, clipped, efficient, nothing more. The hospital moved on quickly. They always do. But the wife's words stayed with me longer than I expected. "You're not the first. You're not even the second." She wasn't trying to punish me. She was trying to warn me. Months later, I moved into a new apartment. Different commute, different parking garage, different stairwell light that didn't flicker. One morning after night shift, I sat at my kitchen table with the blinds half open, letting a narrow line of sunlight fall across the manila folder I'd kept. The papers inside were smooth from handling, edges slightly curled. I opened the folder one last time, read the first screenshot, the last message, the handwritten note. Then I closed it, placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk, and locked it. The key felt warm in my palm for a moment before I set it down. Routine returned slowly. Laundry, meal prep, charting, silence. My footsteps in the morning hallway sounded steady again, unhurried. I don't pretend I was innocent, and I don't pretend the culture will change anytime soon. Hospitals are built on stress and secrecy. People cling to whoever feels grounding in the chaos. But I learned something I didn't expect. Control isn't about hiding. It's about finally seeing a situation for what it is, not what you wanted it to be. Sometimes closure is quiet. Sometimes it's just paperwork in a locked drawer. Sometimes healing is the sound of your own keys on the counter, steady again. And sometimes the most honest confession you can make is simply admitting you were part of a pattern, until you chose not to be. The new apartment has better light. The windows face east, and in the mornings, the sun comes in at an angle that makes the kitchen table glow. I bought a small plant for the windowsill, a succulent that doesn't need much attention. It sits in a white ceramic pot, its leaves thick and green, turning slowly toward the light. I still work at the same hospital. Different unit now, different shift pattern, but the same building. The stairwell between the OR and the parking garage still has that flickering light. I know because I walked through it last week carrying a stack of charts to my car. The buzz was the same, the concrete smelled the same, but I didn't stop. I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, until I reached my car and drove home. The folder is still in the drawer. I don't open it anymore, but I know it's there. Some things you keep not because you need them, but because they prove something happened. They prove you saw it clearly, documented it, and chose to step away. The key to the drawer sits in a small dish on my dresser, next to my watch and a few coins. I see it every morning when I get ready for work. It doesn't bother me. It's just an object now, part of the landscape of my routine. I think about her sometimes. The wife. I wonder if she's still with him, or if she finally left. I wonder if she warned the others, the ones who came after me. I wonder if any of them listened, but mostly I don't wonder. Mostly I just live my days, one shift at a time, one patient at a time, one quiet morning at a time. The stairwell light still flickers, but I don't stop there anymore.